And it's so easy for people to they need something to jump down somebody's back about. He's an easy target.
When Brooke Hogan, daughter of wrestling icon Hulk Hogan, stepped into the courtroom, it wasn't just about family drama. It was a bold move that shook the wrestling world. Known for living in the shadow of her famous father, Brooke surprised many by exposing the darker side of the WWE wrestling scene. Behind the glitz and larger-than-life personas, she revealed unsettling truths about the industry and some of its biggest names. Her courage to speak out not only challenged the carefully crafted images wrestlers present to fans, but also opened a window into the pressures and toxic behaviors often hidden from the public eye. This wasn't just a courtroom showdown, it was Brooke's powerful stand for honesty, healing, and change. The facade of a perfect family. To the world, the Hogan family seemed like the embodiment of the American dream, especially within the high-octane world of professional wrestling. Hulk Hogan, larger than life both in stature and persona, was the hero millions cheered for, the symbol of strength, resilience, and charisma. Alongside him stood his wife Linda and their daughter Brooke, forming what many believed was a tight-knit, loving family unit navigating fame and fortune with grace. Their smiles during public appearances and carefully orchestrated interviews suggested warmth, unity, and a seemingly unbreakable bond. But beneath the glittering surface of Hulkmania, reality told a much different story. The public never truly saw the tension that simmered behind the closed doors of their mansion. What appeared as a loving household was, in truth, a complex web of control, manipulation, and unspoken pain. The Hogan family's private life was a stark contrast to the heroic image fans adored. A world where love was conditional, and the bonds that held them together were fraying under the weight of secrets and betrayals. Brooke grew up under this heavy shadow, where the pressures of being the daughter of a wrestling icon added layers of expectation and isolation. The family's public image was a fortress, impenetrable and meticulously maintained. But inside, Brooke was navigating a minefield of emotional upheaval. The cheerful girl on magazine covers was often a silent witness, and sometimes a reluctant participant, in a family dynamic filled with turmoil. The breaking point: Brooke's long silence. Brooke Hogan's decision to finally speak out was not a spontaneous act, born of impulse or anger. It was the result of years spent carrying an invisible weight. For decades, she had buried her true feelings beneath a facade of loyalty and defense for her father. She was expected to be the supportive daughter who stood by her father's side through every scandal and controversy, no matter how painful or damaging those moments were to her own well-being. This silence, however, came at a high cost. Emotionally exhausted and struggling with the impact of years of manipulation and abuse, Brooke reached a point where protecting the family name meant sacrificing her own mental health and identity. Her voice, once muted and cautious, gradually found strength. A voice that told a story of resilience, but also heartbreak. Brooke's childhood was anything but easy. She described a home filled with volatility, unpredictable shifts from tenderness to rage, moments of affection quickly replaced by harsh words and cold distance. The emotional roller coaster left her confused, anxious, and deeply uncertain about where she fit within the family. Growing up, she felt trapped between the public persona she was expected to uphold and the private reality she lived every day. A childhood marked by manipulation and control. Brooke's revelations paint a vivid and painful picture of what it was like growing up in the Hogan household, a place where control was a currency and love was something to be earned, not freely given. Far from the carefree life one might imagine for the daughter of a celebrity, Brooke was often used as a pawn in the ongoing conflicts between her parents. The emotional abuse was relentless. Harsh words, demeaning criticisms, and subtle forms of psychological manipulation were woven into the fabric of daily life. There were moments when false affection and promises of change would surface, only to be replaced by cycles of coldness and cruelty, leaving Brooke caught in a confusing, exhausting loop. This push and pull dynamic blurred her understanding of love and loyalty, often making her question her own worth. What made this even more painful was that the abuse did not come from just one parent, but both, each contributing their own forms of manipulation. Brooke spoke candidly about how her mother and father would sometimes use her as a shield or a messenger in their battles, forcing her to take sides or defend one against the other. The weight of this responsibility crushed her spirit, making her childhood one marked by constant emotional labor instead of carefree play and joy. Physical abuse, the darker reality behind closed doors. While emotional scars were profound, Brooke's story also uncovered a more terrifying reality: physical abuse. The Hogan home, which should have been a safe haven, often became a place of fear. Brooke recounted incidents that left her feeling vulnerable and unsafe, experiences that shattered any illusions about the perfect family image. These episodes of physical violence were not isolated accidents, but part of a disturbing pattern of behavior, an eruption of anger and control that left lasting psychological wounds. The contrast between Hulk Hogan's public image as a strong, protective father and the private reality of these confrontations was stark and heartbreaking. For Brooke, the worst part was the silence enforced by the family's need to protect their public reputation. The Hogan name was a powerful brand, carefully polished and fiercely guarded. Any hint of scandal could threaten decades of legacy and millions of dollars in business and endorsements. So, despite the pain, Brooke was pressured to keep these dark truths hidden, leaving her trapped in an impossible position, suffering privately while appearing loyal and strong in public. Being a pawn in public scandals. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of Brooke's experience was the role she was forced to play during some of her father's most damaging scandals, particularly the infamous 2015 incident involving leaked audio tapes of Hulk Hogan making racist remarks. When the tapes went public, revealing a side of Hogan that shocked and disappointed many, Brooke was unexpectedly thrust into the spotlight, not as a victim, but as a defender. The burden placed on her was enormous and unfair. She was expected to shield her father's image, to defend and explain away his words, even though doing so conflicted deeply with her own experiences and feelings. This role required her to suppress her own pain, confusion, and growing disillusionment, all while facing the public's scrutiny and judgment. This public defense was not simply about managing reputation. It came at a personal cost, eroding Brooke's sense of self and further complicating her relationship with her family. It added another layer of pressure on top of years of private emotional turmoil, making it harder for her to find peace or healing. Psychological toll and the decision to go no contact. The years spent navigating a family environment steeped in manipulation, abuse, and betrayal took an immense psychological toll on Brooke Hogan. Growing up, she was caught in a relentless emotional storm, a confusing mixture of love, anger, loyalty, and resentment that no child should have to endure. The emotional scars she carried were deep, and for a long time she bore them in silence, confronting her struggles largely alone. Brooke's mental health was profoundly affected by these experiences. Anxiety, depression, and feelings of worthlessness crept in, shadowing her life well into adulthood. Each attempt to reconcile with her parents only seemed to reopen old wounds or create new ones. The exhausting cycle of hope and disappointment wore her down, leaving her at a crossroads where she had to choose between clinging to a painful family bond or breaking free for the sake of her own sanity. The decision to go no contact with both her mother and father was one of the most difficult but necessary acts of self-preservation Brooke could make. It was a declaration that her own well-being mattered more than maintaining the illusion of a perfect family. Importantly, her reasons for distancing herself from each parent were distinct, reflecting the complicated, multifaceted nature of the abuse she endured. This separation was not a mere rejection, but a careful and painful acknowledgement that healing could only begin by removing herself from the toxicity that had long defined her life. The toxic family system, more than just one parent's fault. Brooke's story is a painful reminder that family dysfunction is rarely the fault of a single individual. It was a systemic problem, an interwoven cycle of abuse, neglect, and emotional manipulation that spanned across both parents and permeated every aspect of the household. The Hogan family dynamic was not simply marked by isolated acts of cruelty, but by a pattern of behavior that consistently reinforced pain and dysfunction. Both parents, in their own ways, contributed to an environment where Brooke's vulnerability was exploited rather than protected. She was caught in a toxic system where love was conditional, loyalty was demanded, and emotional safety was almost non-existent. This pervasive toxicity made the possibility of healing and reconciliation seem like a distant dream. Brooke's experiences showed how destructive family systems can become when abuse is normalized and emotional wounds are left untreated. In such a context, choosing self-preservation sometimes means stepping away entirely, a painful but vital step towards reclaiming one's identity and peace. Broader implications for wrestling culture. Brooke Hogan's story is far more than just a personal tragedy. It's a reflection of broader issues within the wrestling industry and celebrity culture at large. Wrestling is a world where the lines between performance and reality are blurred, and the pressures of fame often weigh heavily on those involved. The culture within wrestling has long been criticized for fostering toxic masculinity, where vulnerability is stigmatized and emotional pain goes unaddressed. Her revelations highlight how these pressures, combined with the intense scrutiny of the public eye, create environments where abuse, manipulation, and mental health struggles can go unchecked. The expectation to maintain a tough exterior and uphold a public image often leaves little room for addressing the real human challenges faced by wrestlers and their families. Brooke's willingness to speak out encourages a deeper conversation about the need for accountability, mental health awareness, and supportive systems within wrestling, and celebrity culture more broadly. It underscores the urgent need to create safer spaces where emotional well-being is prioritized alongside performance and public perception. A call for compassion and understanding. Brooke Hogan's decision to share her story is nothing short of an act of bravery. By lifting the veil on the hidden pain behind a wrestling legend's legacy, she invites us to see the humanity behind the headlines and the myth. Her journey toward healing and self-discovery is a powerful reminder that every public figure is, first and foremost, a human being with vulnerabilities, fears, and complexities. Behind the spotlight, behind the fame, lies a world that is often messy and imperfect. Brooke's story challenges fans, peers, and society at large to approach such revelations with compassion and understanding. It encourages us to look beyond the spectacle, to recognize the very real emotional toll that fame and family dysfunction can exact on individuals. In the end, Brooke Hogan's voice is not just a testimony of pain and betrayal. It is a call for truth, healing, and hope. It's a message that even in the darkest shadows of the past, there is the possibility of light and a better future waiting to be claimed. Stay informed. Stay updated. Hit that subscribe button